Welcome, my friends, to the first episode of Simple Mystic. I am Day, and I am joined by my beautiful, wonderful the love of my life, my husband, DTOX Art. And he has joined me, and he's going to create artwork for us today live. Thank you so much, sweetheart, for agreeing to doodle for me while you are such a magnificent artist at the same time. So not only
Thank you
did
so
he
much.
agree, did you want to say something?
Oh no, I just said thank you so much. Honored to be here.
Mm, I love you, sweetheart. So not only did he agree to doodle, but he also agreed to paint me. And so I am hand painted by my husband today. And it's been a special ritual that we've shared in for many years. My husband has been painting me, and we've been creating, and I feel like I'm rambling. um, but
No, we've been creating.
yeah, we've been creating
You know?
together, and just, yeah, this is a big moment and I just send a big thank you to you for joining me. And Simple Mystic, the show, is very much about finding the resonance, finding that light-hearted Christ resonance that has been offered to us from source and through source. And ultimately what that is unconditional love. And so Simple Mystic is going to break down some of the concepts that have honestly been held back through gatekeeping through various reasons for a period of time, but the gates are coming down now, and the information is ready to flow and flow simply. And that's because there's a big thing happening right now on our earth in linear time, which is this beautiful, magnificent, what many have known as 5D shift into a love consciousness that is actually magnified throughout the earth and throughout the planet. And so many of us have been called and asked to hold water, if you will, to bear the light. And that work is so magnificent because simply bearing the light and holding the light transforms the world around us. Brothers and sisters, my soul sisters and brothers, I know that you know this already. Holding the light is what will transform the world. And not only that, but our consciousness and where we place our focus as we hold the light. And we are scientific transmuters of energy and experts of energy. Um, I thought recently about the fact that sometimes people who want to live high resonant lives are looked at as overly positive. And sometimes those people can be judged for being unrealistic, or I've heard the words like Pollyanna, these type of views. But there's a misunderstanding. Those who choose to hold a high resonant light are not foolishly um, walking in the light. They are, we are masters of both light and dark. And we've learned how to hold and understand our darkness, just as our source, our creator, holds its own darkness. And that's something that we'll get into deeper as we progress. But today, what we're going to be talking about I should say, this is a three-part series, and this is part one. And today, what we're going to be talking about is what source is, the substance of source, and who source is. So, if you didn't know yet, the Simple Mystic verse is based on Christian mysticism that has evolved into a sort of spiritual science, but we do hold on tight to the light of Christ, and the light upholds us. So there is this biblical element, but I would not call this religious. And some may hear it and say, "Oh, that's religious," you know. But join me and let me know, join us and let us know what you think, because we're all of us souls all of us souls, we all have unique perspectives and a unique consciousness. And so even just using words and not yet being able to use telepathy to share and discuss these things, even just using words does take away from the message and the understanding of the message. So we do have to be very merciful and forgiving in the usage of understanding words and connect to our personal intuition and our personal truth. Hold on to what does resonate and make sense to us, and really just release the rest without judgment. And that's one of the most pure ways to process the information, because your spirit knows what it needs and what it wants right now, and those things it will deposit, and you can just release the others. You're at no obligation to hold something that doesn't resonate with you. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from Ephesians 4:6. And in Ephesians 4:6, and forgive me, I'm going to look at my screen here to my left. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all in all. The great all in all. So it almost sounds in contrast to what we have heard about Christianity, because so many times through the years we've heard about Christianity, and we've heard that it means that there is only one path to God. And this group of verses here says that there is one body and one spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. This is not meant to be limiting. This is actually quite the opposite. This is not speaking of a limitation for those who can access God through some specific singular path. It is saying that no matter how many different trillions of paths there may be, they all lead to one. And that one is Source. That one is our Creator. That one is often referred to the Father. But that can be limiting. But we will just hold that. So let's go a little bit further. Let's go into Acts 17:28. And so it reads, "For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are all his offspring." So this is, again, speaking of the all in all. In the all in all, there is no separation. There is perceived separation. There is a perceived separation that I am a human sitting in a chair, and that me and the chair are separate, and that me and the room that I'm in are separate. But there's no separation in the all in all. So we are all within Source, having been created by Source, for Source, we are Source. So there is no separation from me and the chair or the space, and most of the things that we see visually are simply holograms. And we are in a state of consciousness, and that consciousness is a God consciousness that has been split from a perspective. Let me explain that. Let me break that down. I'm thinking of the flower of life. I'm thinking of the flower of life, if you've ever seen that image. There are rings on top of one another, and they overlap. They slightly overlap each other. This flower of life, when I think of the flower of life, it reminds me of a cell. It reminds me of a dividing cell. And if I were to reverse that dividing cell, and so say that I have a flower of life that's made of trillions or millions and trillions of cells, or you could see it as just a few cells. But that this group of cells makes up source, and source created all of this group of cells and everything that this group of cells has created within themselves. And so as you begin to picture this demonstration of everything that has ever existed, beginning in one cell, and that cell having been sourced through source on the basis of an intentional thought, then this original cell would represent Christ. And this original cell would be made from that pure love, unconditional love, light substance. Okay. And this is not how everyone will see it. Some people will see this differently. Some people have explained things similar to this in different ways. This is how I have received what Christ is. That Christ is the original light being of a sort of matter that was created from source with the intention of creating being. And that being is the fullness of God in a being. And that being is not so much a being as it is a wavelength consciousness. That first resonant thought of intentional creation that came from source in love is Christ. And so this is why, because Christians often say, Christ was there from the beginning. So this is why many say that many have held and carried this light. So it's not just Jesus, because Christ was even before Jesus. And Jesus, whose true name, as we know it and understand right now, was Yeshua. And so Yeshua did something that we're all now trying to do. We're all now surrendering our vessels to the light. And Christ's life was a metaphor for the surrender to the point of death and resurrection, which is exactly what we do as we work and process this higher light into our being, so that we can then create our light body, our ascended body that Christ returned and exemplified for those who saw him. And this is whether you believe that this story or tale or myth is true or not true, the light of God is true. And the story of Yeshua has been told in various ways. And you'll hear some people say, well, this story was told in this other religion that came before, and this other culture, and this other. And it makes me think, yes, isn't that amazing? How important this story is, that it keeps coming through again and again for us to receive. What a gift. What a gift. So unconditional love essentially is what we are talking about on a higher, like on a backed out scale. I feel like I should pause and just acknowledge your sketch. It's very beautiful.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
Is there anything you want to say, or?
Oh gosh, yeah. Man, it's, I think kind of what really struck me first was like the era of gatekeeping is over, and there's so much knowledge and love coming through unfiltered, you know. And some of it comes across as a harsh truth. Some of it comes across as, oh, that sounds, intense or wild, or but then there's also something that's, I use the word magical, but something magical happens where you'll hear something and it'll resonate with you. And, you know, y- yeah, you want more proof and more other things. But there's some things that over the years, like after I researched them or, sat with them for, years, uh, sure enough, that first feeling of like, man, that feels like truth to me. And then sure enough, it was revealed to be a truth of this reality.
Right.
So I just think it's such a special time for people who are seeking knowledge, or, even if you're not seeking knowledge, it's a magical time to 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 connect with things that are heading towards you.
Mm, that's
You,
beautiful.
you know,
Yeah.
like it's kind of like there's a lot going on if you look up, looking down at
Mm,
looking down, there's only so many variables that the ground can give you, and that's metaphor, or whatever. The ground
that's
can give us
yeah.
so much, but you know, there's
No,
a
that's
whole
very true.
world um to to um to recognize, because part of it is just, in a consumption society, and just all the things there, you know whether they're man-made distractions or just the distractions of man. There's a easy way to not see anything,
Mm,
and
mhm.
as the veil becomes thinner and parts of it get torn down or ripped, you know that the gift of seeing the unseen worlds, or seeing a world that was just invisible to you, I mean, that's going to be such a wonderful gift, for all of us. Imagine in our lifetime, you know everyone's energy and vibration raising so high that, we know who's really lying. Like it's an aura color emanating, or, or it's just a
Mm,
feeling that hits your chest like a bass tone, like you feel it in a reverberatory way physically,
I
you know. So it's just imagine just how much, yeah, there'll be growing pains, but, we're entering such a wonderful and powerful moment, um, to sit with a bunch of truths that have been kept from us or tainted. And so, as these, long story short, as these, thank you for asking what I feel, as these undiluted truths rise to the surface of society and mankind's, conscious and unconscious mind, um, what a wonderful roller coaster that's exhilarating and scary. But at the end of it, it was built to, you know, it was built for exhilaration. There's going to be growing pains, but the end product is, enlightenment and exhilaration that comes from enlightenment. Prosperity. A whole list of positive attributes that flood in, um, after someone latches onto a truth that they're willing to die or live for.
mhm. Mm,
Imagine so many people knowing where they stand, you know, religiously or in the universe. Like, right now we're motivated by a family unit to strive. Imagine when we really wrap our heads around that Earth and humans, that we are all one, and we're this wonderful blue dot in the universe, and there's so many other colored dots in the universe, and we're the blue dot.
that's
How
beautiful.
much we'll fight and strive to achieve after we know that, like, company is watching.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I was just catching, just there's so many strong combinations of words that you just casually let rip, and I felt a bunch of that in it.
Uh, well, ditto.
Can you
Yeah.
can you see what I'm drawing so far?
Yes, I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, I cannot wait to see this.
So I got this human form with this just four-way intersection directionally, which makes like a cross with a negative white space in the center. So those four intersections making us a solid, but yet the connection point is still pure energy of, like, it hasn't decided.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then from that, there's like more directional bearings, or concentrations where solid forms are forming in all directions. And like there's a smaller sphere orbiting, to where, like, kindles like what gravity does for planets and planetary
Hmm.
movement. And then the aura behind him is actually a coagulating eyeball of a newborn. And then
Oh,
this is the eyeball of the other the left eye of the newborn, and the pupil's actually splitting into two slash an infinity kind of shape. As the pupil and the eyes forming, it's like still in like a an infinite motion kind of energetic thing. As it's coagulating, it's still showing its thing. And then so this infant is inside of a skull, which is inside of a human form. And then I'll explain some of this later, but um, you know, this source line that's coming down through the person, there's like a huge, galactic wheel or orbit um, that is around this center column. And, this one
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be closest to the viewer is representative of this lifetime of this individual here. And so
Mm-hmm.
these are all lifetimes that are all connected and rotating, but then
Mm-hmm.
also as each, life has done its run or its current
Mm-hmm.
run, I'll have these little connector kind of pieces that show that it like is helping like form a chain or a link. It's
Mm-hmm.
helping this orbit become more solid because there's going to be like a linking factor between these things.
That's beautiful. That's so cool, so exciting. Thank you. I love it. And I love that it looks like there's these movements almost like U-shaped above and then almost like a rainbow shape kind of below.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you notice that the top line of this face, the ones that are going up,
Mm-hmm.
is the top line of this doorway that comes through the forehead and then out the back of the head, this open
That's very
doorway.
good.
And
That is very
then
good.
the
Yes.
top of this head that's going downward is actually the bottom line of the door.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Almost like this one to get, and then there's overlap, but together, making up the passage.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's really um it's really on point experientially from a meditation um from a meditation standpoint because
Mm,
you have this where you have this seat behind the eyes. This is very much like the medulla oblongata seat that sits um at the base of like the brain and the spine, kind of where they
mm,
at the skull. And there's this place, um, well, I mean, third eye, medulla oblongata area where, you know, that's sort of where well, I'll speak for myself. That's sort of where my third eye opens up. And it appears to be, it's almost like a spaceship.
mm,
It's almost like a spaceship for your consciousness. And so the way you have that, it literally looks like a spaceship and sitting in that area of the brain and the head, from what I can see. I mean, it's so accurate. And then also, because you have those bands that I was talking about, so that, uh, from what I've experienced, is, and I'll let you bring it in more, of course. Like, I mean, I'm not like telling you to make it anything. Like, I like what you're
mhm,
doing. But what it really reminds me of is in meditation, in scripture, we hear what I'm describing referred to as Jacob's ladder. And the Kabbalists describe it as the tree of life. And some may have used the flower of life as a way to portray this ladder between the lower bodies and the higher bodies. And it's very interesting because I can speak from experience for myself only, right? But I wonder if anyone else has experienced this. We have light coming down through that higher portal, which I believe it's Psalms calls that the holy oracle, and that resonates very deeply. So we have light coming down like through the crown and into down through the spine and through the chakra centers. But I also feel like we have a, a lower part of ourselves that's coming up and meeting that light, and then
mm, mhm,
taking that light down into the fullness of our being, um, filling the lower chakras and creating this light circuitry from the lower body and what can sometimes manifest as a lower self and up into the heart and the throat and the mind and and then creating and fulfilling our etheric auric body. It's sort of like a torus, It's almost like we're each our own little planet, really.
Mm.
Um, Connected to all the other sources of light and that nurture us. Okay, that's a whole different topic. Let me go back now. So now I'm going to go to 1 John 4:12 through 14. And so we're still talking about source. And so this says, no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. This is how we know that we live in him and he in us. He has given us of his Spirit, and we have seen and testify that the Father has sent his Son to be the Savior of the world. My focus for bringing these scriptures up is that we live in him and he in us, speaking of source, and that we can see that God is in us and lives in us when we love one another. This is how we know. So that's not to say that those who are not in love or those who aren't living in love, that's not to say that they are not in God and God in them. It's more so that they just don't know, or they don't believe it, or they've gotten so far away from that truth that they don't even think about it anymore. So I'm actually going to read verse 13. This is how we know that we live in him and he in us. He has given us of his Spirit. So the Spirit spoken of in Scripture is rarely clearly described as the Holy Spirit Mother. But that is, in my experience, who and what that is. So that's why we see, of course, the Father and of course the Mother, and then the child. And so who is Source? Source is the masculine creator. And then Spirit is the essence of Source. And that essence is the divine, feminine, nurturing spirit that Christ called the counselor, the spirit of peace that can come upon us and that we can surrender to. We can surrender to that spirit of peace. And so this is how we live in him and him in us. Source in us and us in source, and having that acknowledgement and that understanding through the compassionate connection to the loving spirit of God. And I'm sure that some people see that differently, and that's totally okay. All right. So the next verse that we're going to read is Colossians 1:16. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, or all things have been created through him and for him. So this again is talking about source and the masculine creator source. The masculine aspect, from my experience, is that source's energy is directed outward. That would be like the masculine aspect of that energy, that it's a creative energy that's directed outward. And we experience that father energy in how we go out and create in the earth and in our lives. And masculine male men, and I can't speak for the transgender experience. If you would like to comment on that, I would love to hear from you and how you experience divine and masculine energies, because I know that's a very sacred experience from that perspective. But a non-transgender masculine male, those individuals do tend to be very oriented toward going out and creating, or some would say manifesting, bringing home the bacon. Women are also amazing at it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not in any way putting down women. But if we were to then talk about the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit Mother, and that feminine energy, and how she manifests, she tends to be a deep inner healing, deep inner comforter, nurturer. Both are the same. Like, we're creating separation, but there's no separation. Source is not really split. So they're the same, but because of the eternal nature of source, just for the sake of understanding and for the sake of experiencing, we have broken things down into categories, and source has broken things down into categories for experiential reasons, and also implemented forgetfulness for experiential reasons. But the Holy Spirit, Mother, divine mother energy from source, how I have experienced her is in some of the darkest places. She goes inward and she does the work, this inward healing. And that is who Christ, scripturally, that's who Christ sent to help us and to do the work within us and to help us remember. So the verse is when he's leaving and he says he's going to send the comforter back. I don't have it looked up right now, but he says he's going to send the comforter back and that she will bring, he doesn't say she in the Bible, but she will bring back to our remembrance everything that he had taught us. And I see no reason to put any limitation on that, especially a time limitation. So this would mean that anything that Christ has ever taught, because we are all one in the all in all, anything that Christ has ever taught can be brought back to our remembrance, which means anything that source has ever uttered can be brought back to our remembrance. So let's see where we're headed. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. So there are invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. This is where we can get to an uncomfortable truth. It is all source. We, creatures, have divided ourselves down over and over and over again and gotten, some people don't like to say higher or lower, but I need to say higher or lower for the sake of our linear understanding. So we have separated and divided ourselves and recreated, renamed ourselves. And for the sake of having an experience and for being an individual separate from source. But yet this is source that I am speaking of. So source separated itself. And perhaps when it first separated itself as Christ. Or perhaps some would say, the Kabbalists would say, when it first separated itself into light and dark, right? So Father and Mother Spirit, if you will. And then now we're finally getting back to the metaphor of the cell, because now we've divided, and then we've divided, and then we've divided. And so the cell continues to divide. And if we were to look at this in a linear fashion, then we can see that we have cells that are dividing and multiplying and getting further and further and further away from their original source. And it's one could take the perspective that the further away that those cells get from their original source, the more and more they forget that they are from the original source, that they are part of the original source, and even how the original source operates, what it is, or that it exists. Because now we have divided consciousness. And this actually gets into something that I wanted to talk about. In part 2, which is soul fragments. And it's a similar concept. It's a very similar concept of dividing ourselves. But let me take a breath for a second. Maybe you want to share something. Your artwork is coming along absolutely beautifully. Very, very interesting.
Thank you so much. pleasantly surprised at some of the, I mean, I planned most of this, but just this face forming, laying in the nose and the mouth first, and then bringing in the confinement of the skull, and watching the teeth and jaw line up, and then I have this floating layer of metatarsal, cartilage and stuff, forming between the outer edge and the inner edge of the skeleton, and this spine starting. Long story short, given this, like, because I wanted to do like an X-ray feel while it still feels like embryonic, still
Mm.
forming, and I really kind of nailed that right here, where he's like looking at his own hand,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see through it, and there's like a little bit of amazement where he's just like, wait, I'm like solid, I'm in like third dimension, I'm in like, wait, what, so
Right.
I love this express. It's simple, but I, I was trying to put a little bit of like this mouth that's just a little bit smiling. I wanted to make like a sense of wonder as the newborn is becoming like physical matter, and I
Mhm.
low key kind of achieved that. So I
Yeah,
was like, yes, a little bit of like the wonder as it's forming into solid state.
it is very trippy and very multidimensional from an understanding standpoint. Like, kind of gives
Yeah,
me.
well, and like this, the overlapping circles, because like this is like male and female duality and the overlay in one vessel. See that? This is
I
the,
see.
and then like,
Mhm.
and then this, is like a, I would guess I would say like this little ball represents just decision, or intent,
Mhm.
because like kind of like how you were touching on, like, you know, if it's very experiential, and if I haven't, if from what I'm experiencing, I can't speak on that. So anyone who is experiencing, chime in, like
Mhm.
that the decision is what gives, the decision lays the path, you know, for how the knowledge kind of comes at us, someone playing it safe in a laboratory, a scientist, or the guy out in the field that says, hey, we're going to go to the jungle and figure out, how many times you can get bit by this spider before it kills you.
Mm.
Like screw these laboratory tests. So there's your decisions. This decision, you know, like can change the physical shape of the life, and it can also change the way the brain thinks. It goes all the way from thought to physical form. These known and unknown decisions, really.
Yeah.
Some stuff we're silently agreeing to,
Yes.
being born into a certain religion, um, or being born to a certain way of life, and then one day being like, wait a minute, that was for you. You decided that was for you. That ain't for me, or I agree, but I don't agree with this, and here's why, and your experience. A lot of times, it's your experience that makes you, stand for something so matter of factly. You're like, I lived it, like, and you can
Mm.
stand in that decision stronger because you experienced it
Right. Yeah.
versus, reading up on something or
Yes,
hearing it,
absolutely.
hearing it secondhand.
Yes, and beliefs can be very limiting. So that's, I really try to check myself every now and then. So I'm like, what am I believing in that is limiting me? And I don't even realize it. And shout out to Sasha Soul Wanderer on YouTube. And he is a good friend and he's so kind and just wonderful at deconstructing um, understandings. Um, but what I was going to say is that, he really stays so open to not overly attached to any specific belief because he understands through his experiences of astral travel and out of body experiences that everything is awareness. And so that goes back to what I was starting to bring up, I think, which was that there is an uncomfortable truth that all of the things that we're seeing around us are all source. It is all source bringing justice and balance where there's major imbalances. And yes, there are some love can come through at times in forms of terrible destruction. And um, some pain oftentimes is allowed, and we don't fully understand why, especially pain would ever be allowed to occur to the beings that are so innocent. The most innocent
Yeah.
among us. It's very hard to understand or accept why. And from what I have gathered, and please share in the comments, share your own perspective. Even source has a shadow that source is processing. And that shadow came from a result of free will creation. And it's kind of like when they say whatever is the most chaotic thing that can happen does happen. you know,
Yeah.
it's rough, but I do believe that we have the power based on our focus to change what is allowed to happen and bring in some changes. So on that note, I'm going to move on to what I believe is happening right now, which is that I believe that what we consider Christ consciousness, which could also be unconditional love, say that unconditional love, acceptance, mercy, um, that the combined resonance of Christ consciousness, Christ consciousness's effect on matter in the 1D plane, meaning like first density, meaning where we are on Earth, the very dense reality that we're in. And people will often refer to it also as 3D from like a human science perspective. There's many of us who have been working and are working, and we have a new, based in linear time, we have a new level of Christ conscious awareness that is rocking through the planet. And we're just getting started. This has been going on, don't get me wrong. This has been a work from the very beginning. But there's a shift happening where what has been going on in 3D, or 1D, however you personally look at it, it needs to change. So many of us no longer want to consent to just kind of how the game's been playing out. And so from what I can see, one of the ways that we're changing what is allowed and what is going to happen is by, this might sound a little crazy, but essentially we're taking the heavenly realm energy and we're bringing it down into this realm. And we are transmuting the energy of this realm, and we're creating a whole different reality, almost like a subplane of the heavenly realm. We're in creating this, we're doing away with some of the BS from what I can see that's in between where we are now and the higher, what some would consider the higher heavenly planes. We are changing the resonance or the wavelengths between here and there. They're shifting, because there's just certain things that the majority of us do not want to do anymore. The majority of us do not want to be controlled through tactics of fear and hate. We just don't want to use our energy in that way anymore. And we don't want to be manipulated in that way anymore. So that's what this is. That's what this is. And that is why we are here. I'm giving myself a breath because, okay.
Well, and also you're giving yourself some breath because the real weight of what you just said, I mean, some people can recognize how big that statement is. And,
I was hoping it
you're
was
feeling
clear. I was hoping it came across clear. It's kind of, not kind of clear, but clearly. Yeah. So what can we do? What can we do? One of the greatest works that we can do as individuals is to tend to the kingdom within ourselves, our kingdom that Christ spoke of. And tending that kingdom is something that we're going to get into a lot more detail in the part 2, because part 2 is about spiritual attachments and soul fragments. So this is about how trauma can truly fracture us and make us feel even more separate from God. We'll talk about how to heal and how to be whole, because God does call us and ask us to be whole in Scripture. And why is that? Why do we ever need to be whole? When were we ever fragmented? So we could talk about that next time, part 2. Part 3 will be on Patreon, and part 3, Patreon will be free. Patreon is free until I don't know when. And but part 3 will be on Patreon, because part 3 is going to discuss some of the heavier things about spirituality that some of us could be experiencing, and how to break free from that. And of course, I'll share some personal stories, and yeah, we'll just keep that there on Patreon. And everything will be linked below: how to gain access to DTOX's artwork, and how to find the Patreon, and the website, which just leads you back to the Patreon and the artwork. All right, so we are creating through love right now. Millions and millions and millions of people who are not in the news are creating in love right now. And one of the most powerful things that we can do is place our attention on love and on our own hearts, and being true and authentic in our hearts, and true and authentic about what is in our hearts and what we believe, and what we're experiencing, and just essentially letting truth flow throughout the entire body. And there is a yoga video coming out soon, probably in February, I had to guess, 2026, where I'll be sharing how to release some things that you may be holding on to in the body. But there is another video. There's a video up right now on the Present Day Yoga channel called Heart Opening. And it is a yin yoga series directed at opening the heart and releasing pain and trauma. But when you release pain and trauma through yin yoga, you don't have to replay it or anything of that sort, really. I mean, sometimes something visceral may pass through you, but that is very rare. And if it does happen, as long as you surrender just to the weight of the yoga pose, it can pass through very quickly. So just a little tip. But yeah, I highly recommend the Heart Opener video in the meantime. But
And I want to jump in to say, I think you should remind your viewers that you created, you're a certified yoga instructor, and you created trauma-informed yin yoga, and what that does. Just real quick in a couple sentences.
You're so sweet. Well, I didn't create trauma-informed yin yoga. Trauma-informed yin yoga has been around for a long time, and it is also an ancient practice.
I guess I meant more of just me watching you build that curriculum and the combinations, and
I've created,
just making it accessible, and just for a new appreciative creature. You made it more accessible than I've ever seen it.
You're so sweet. Thank you, sweetheart. Well, I do hope people feel that way. I do hope people find it accessible, find the yin yoga videos accessible. But yeah, I'm sure many people have heard the quote, "The body keeps the score." And one of the simple ways that I like to illustrate it is, and it's not a very fun illustration, but if you can imagine yourself, I'm sorry if this is triggering, imagine yourself being punched in the stomach. You can even imagine it as a joke, not somebody being mean. But that visceral feeling that comes to mind, that kind of, oh, and you feel this, in your gut. And if you think about it, you kind of feel it thunder through your body, your shoulders, This is kind of how trauma hits the body and stores itself in the body. It hits, and it has attached to it things like memories, words, images, and it reverberates through and into the body, and deep into areas of the body like the fascia and the muscle and the organs. And so this is why we'll hear doctors and scientists say that, the gut has a brain and um, the heart has a brain. And now they're like, everything has a brain in the body. What's going on? But yes, all parts of our body can hold memory. And so, and can hold, sometimes when we hold painful memories in the body, sometimes that can evolve into even illness. And so it is such an amazing practice to release trauma from the body. And so that's what the yin yoga will do. And it is very slow. I will tell you now, some people are not ready for how slow it is. It is very slow. And the whole goal of yin yoga is to surrender and to release and relax. And it calms the nervous system and allows us to process things out of the body. Yeah. Energy that we might be holding.
So important.
That's
Because
beautiful.
you could have mentally gotten past something, but your body still holding on to something is still going through that trauma. Even if your mind has forgotten or quote unquote, I've forgiven or just, whatever got you through and past that mentally, there's still a physicality about releasing that trauma from your body.
Yes, absolutely. And we just don't always realize what we're holding on to. But even when we pause with the intention of letting go, and if I'm with the intention of if I'm holding on to anything, I'm here to release it and I'd like to release it. Just that intention is enough that the intelligence of your being is ready and will bring something to the table, if you will. It's almost like you made an internal prayer. I'm ready to heal. What do you got? And the intelligence and the depth of your being will bring something forward that it wants to release, because we all have this soul, eternal soul aspect of ourselves. And that's, simplifying probably a lot, but we all have this eternal soul aspect of ourselves that wants the absolute best for us at all times, knows and understands us so much better than we know and understand ourselves. And it's our greatest helper in evolving us through our lifetimes.
Well, I really notice how much I vocal stim while I doodle because I've been in my head making little noises and sound effects while I've
Because you're
been
trying to be
doodling.
quiet.
Yeah. I mean, it's not too hard, but there's definitely moments where I'm like, I definitely was just making some science fiction sound effects for this. Like when I just did this, you see this little pulse that I have going at this top orb?
Hmm.
I was literally doing like EKG, and I was literally like, did I just do that out loud? Because I was in it, like this one's flatlining, and I was like, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I just didn't do an EKG sound out of nowhere.
It's so good. I love it. And it's okay if you do. Um,
Okay.
so I think I'll end with a story, and it looks like soon you're sort of
Mm-hmm.
completing yours as well. And then, okay. So I wanted to share the story of, from what I can remember right now, because I have found that as we go on our journey, sometimes we remember things and we realize that that thing that we remembered was something that we thought we never experienced before, but we did. Because our existence is so dynamic and a lot of things are hard to process. And sometimes when something is too hard to process, we just push it down and we forget about it, but it is still a part of who we are. So, from what I can remember, this is the first time that I ever worked with energy to heal. And it was on myself. Um, I had gotten very sick around and I've tried to do the math on this. I want to say 37th birthday. I don't know. But I went out for my birthday. We've been together for 15 years, Jared and I. The best 15 years of my life, and just a dream come true. Would not want to
Me too, for sure.
would not want to do life with anyone else. So, but anyways, I had gotten sick. We went out for my birthday. I had a lot of fun. Woke up with the flu essentially, and got really sick. It was one of those times where you get so sick that you're like, oh, this is the flu. Like I thought I had the flu before. No, this is the flu. So it was really bad. And I would say I was in bed for, I want to say it was over 2 weeks. And my memory loosely says 3 weeks, but I don't know how intense all three were. But what happened was my lungs got caked, caked up. Oh, the thought of it. It was It was scary because I was so tired and weak that kind of all I could do was sleep and lay down. But I kept waking up and not being able to breathe because my lungs were like caked up hard. And then I would cough and almost suffocate myself or something by whatever was going on with my lungs when I would cough. And I knew I needed steam, but I was like so tired, like I couldn't even move. It was rough. And these hands appeared. What I now would say was perhaps I was having an out of body experience. These hands appeared next to the bed, and there was this green fire there with the hands. And the hands began to almost scrape. It was like my lungs needed to be scraped. And the hands began to scrape the disease and the illness out from inside my chest, inside my lungs, inside my gut. They moved and they were like removing matter from my body is what it felt like. But it was actually what it was thick energy of disease. And and the hands would take the diseased energy and throw it into the green fire. I'll never forget how light I felt after the first session. It was like I could take a breath, and it was shocking to me. And I felt this intuition to get up and take a go take a steam shower now that you can move. And so I went and I did that and did what I needed to do in there, and then came back and laid down and had multiple more sessions with these healing hands next to my bed. And I'll never forget it. I mean, so then somehow after that happened and I recovered, those hands were my hands. And while I thought God was coming to save me, God was teaching me how to heal myself, how to feel my energetic body and heal and remove things from my body. And so this is something that we'll definitely talk more about on this channel. What it feels like to sense energy in your body, how to connect to it, and how to move it. And if you're watching this right now and you're like, just tell me, I just want to know now, I can tell you that it is done with your intention. And your almost, I'm going to mix some words, almost like a sovereign command of knowing that you are doing what you're doing. And that is enough. And it just is. And the visceral feelings will come and follow. And these are things that we'll talk about more at a later time. Your drawing is amazing.
Do you see how I just did this path going as stairs up the spine? Holy moly.
Oh, wow. My goodness.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I kept myself off. I have no idea how long we've been filming. We are filming like in the middle of the night, right after our son went to sleep. We went for it. So, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drawing. So, do you think like prints like these will be available if somebody wants one?
Yeah, I'm thinking that we will make some merch, just light merch, like a print, maybe put one on a coffee mug,
Oh, that'd be so cool.
And then we will auction off silent bid the originals to raise money for worthy causes throughout the year.
Oh, that's very creative. I love that.
Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll let the originals sit for a few months to let people just, view it, connect to it, whatever, and, give the art time to find the right owner. Because with these originals, I'm there's a lot of intent energy and a lot of pontificating life and the human experience that I'm injecting, and just deciding what little dots mean. This holy trinity tri-dot before it goes into the inner orb, the center of this nuclei source. Uh, there's like a vibratory doorway. You see these ripples, and then
Mm-hmm.
showing you source, and sources putting these, you know, these could be opportunities, these could be um, temptations,
Mm-hmm.
coming down to this experiencer right here, and there's a little heart glyph here before it goes to this like four-way energetic cross, you know, the second brain, this one that's like the bigger, it's double nuclei, it's the most reinforced double dot kind of like in this whole thing, and that's that second lower intestinal brain. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the way these light beams are like classic rays, you know, razor sharp, or they're in triplicates with single lines between them, and then as it gets to the stretch of it, there's a double line between them to turn into this new pattern. And then over here is more of a liquid form, like nature. It does nature doesn't build patterns. Well, it does, it builds in patterns for sure, but it doesn't build those hard angles. Is man this is almost like mankind's intent. The hard angles shows mankind's intent, and this fluid form shows nature's pattern. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and just
Going with the flow of nature and going against nature.
yeah, so like
Yeah. Wow. It's like these are all the different things that um that humans have to deal with. And this is like this illustration reminds me of the things that we have to deal with in the invisible world and how much more there is there than so many of us realize because it is invisible. Um,
yeah,
Earthly life. So take this back to what I was saying early on about like people who want to live in a higher resonance life. I hope I said this earlier. I think I did, which is ultimately like that doesn't mean that you're just uber positive and you just have a great and positive life all the time, or it doesn't mean that like life is just easy for you. Like you don't have to, it is
right,
easier. I will say it is easier. It is easier because the path can be made clear and it can be made simple. Once once we're tuned in and following our spiritual intuition, there is definitely an ease about it. There is definitely an access path of peace, and heavenly peace. But we're still in this world and we're still a party to all of the conflict and the chaos, whether we want to or not. It is in the atmosphere. And so we do end up processing it in so many different ways. There's so many ways to process this earthly existence.
yeah. Well, and you like to just double on, or piggyback onto that is, me personally, and I have some tattoos that remind me of trauma that I've survived. I have these tears that are flowing upwards on a face and then flowing downwards on a face. And it's to remind me, I decide to either shut down from the trauma and be in heartache, or to defy gravity, defy the laws of, you know, the reaction that they hoped I would have, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that type of approach at it, and to defy, and then, the tears are running up my face, up my forehead. And instead of classically down, so on one cheek, there's these eyes, and there's one teardrop going downward, and then there's another one going up the top, out. And that just kind of symbolized for me. I drew it up and told the guy to tattoo it on me, because I was basically like, you know, I won't be, my soul is destined for so much more than just being a victim, or to
Yes.
be, to focus on being victimized after I survived, you know, super intense physical and mental trauma, you know, and,
Mm.
and we decide what we do with that lesson, and I have a little thing that I've told myself, um, uh, in hindsight, the greatest gift that was never acknowledged, you know, are those intense things, the knowledge that's inserted inside your life's hurdles in hindsight is the greatest gift that was never acknowledged. And so to like to remind myself, like, hey, yeah, some messed up stuff happened, and guess what? How you process it will either be a poison or a fuel for you,
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
choose. Do you want it to be a poison? Sure, we can make it a poison. Or are you going to fight through it and wade through the murkiness to stomp it until it turns to fuel, or however, you metaphorically want to say you want to process it, and because like it doesn't turn to fuel on its own, or it does sometimes. Sure, you let fossil fuels sit there for forever and it turns into sludge, and but it still has to be processed in order to turn to fuel. And so it was just kind of a reminder to myself, like, this trauma, it can just make you just a soul of sorrow, or
Mhm.
you can take the knowledge that's inserted inside of your life's hurdles and recognize that it's the greatest gift that you've been given because
Mm.
you survived too. I mean, let's be honest. Some people don't make it. So like in part of that, you know, like me, I had to find the joy in being a survivor. I had to be like, there's a joy in this instead of just ultimate torment. Like, dang,
Right.
I'm
You
just
didn't just
thinking about
stop.
what happened to me
Right.
and I wish I was dead, and just, I didn't want to just succumb to that. I wallowed in it for years. And then, there was a point when I was like, I have to fight my way to get to siphon the knowledge out of this and become strong. There's a way to become strong from this. And I have to like find that way, you know?
Yes.
And part of it comes with being able to be honest with yourself and the people you love, and I say that from my own experience of like living a lie, or lying to myself, like, and just as simple as not facing what really happened, because like for me, like just being on the side of like, man, I can't even wrap my head around it. And it really
Mm.
happened, type,
Mm.
when someone is,
Yes.
assaulted out of nowhere and you wake up in night terrors, or, and your body remembers even when you totally forgot, or just whatever it is, you know,
Mm.
wrapping your head around it to say, it's not going to break my brain. Like, I'm going to put that, I'm a, and you have to have the reason why I said all that is it helps to have a support system. It helps to be honest with someone else that's living, or just to be purely honest with yourself. You
Yeah.
know, if you don't have anyone to talk to, you can honestly talk to yourself, and you'd be surprised how powerful that is, you know.
Yes. Mhm.
And so everyone that's going, as I do this last line here, everyone that's going through something, I always heard people like, you're not the only person that's ever experienced that, or they always do it in a condescending way, you know, and it's like, oh, you think you're the only one that's ever had their heart broken, It's like the reversal of that is like, no, like someone, like in a compassionate way, telling someone or telling whoever out there, no, like someone's had their heart broken in just the way you had your heart broken, and
Mm.
like someone out there truly understands, and like even if in your lifetime you don't find that person and you didn't audibly say it, like, like you're saying, like tapping into like a subconscious dream mind, or like, I didn't know I was having an OBE, or, out of body experience, or, there's a way to release that to the ether, your truth to the ethers. And there are comforters waiting for you
Yes.
if you release your truth to the ether.
Yes.
And that's what I feel led to say, you know.
Thank you so much. That's
Okay,
absolutely
what do we
beautiful.
think? Is it a back tattoo or what?
Chest. I love it. It's beautiful. 1/20/2026 or 1/20/26.
And my first ink paper drawing of 2026. Let's go. Oh wait,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do this though. There's supposed to be an orb or something in the center of the chest.
Always got to have an orb in the center of the chest, baby.
Got to. We're gonna get somewhere. Let's go somewhere. Yeah. Oh yeah. So you feel this? See it behind there?
I see it. Yeah.
That's what we needed.
Yeah. This also reminds me of the Taurus, the shape of the Taurus with the energy going up and down. I mean, there's just so much
Yeah.
here. There's so much
Yeah.
here.
Where this meets. Oh, I didn't do these lines. Hold on. Um, where this meets, it's like showing you. We don't see all of it, but
Mhm.
this is the crossover from it fulfilling its cycle. This is
Yes.
the. Okay, did I do? Let's see. Over here. Oh man. This part, well, I sketched this because I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to show you all a little pattern. Well, this is what I can show you. So this decision stuff, this could be a life path, you know, and all of a sudden something happens. Let's just say the gift of free will, and you have to choose, okay? And there's a little forethought that zigzags, like, oh, is something coming where I'm gonna have to like make this type of decision, or just whatever it is. Then all of a sudden you come to this make a square. This life-changing moment. This could be trauma. This could be asking the girl to marry you under the stars. It could be, whatever it is. And then from that decision, a new life path.
Wait, what happened? Stop. You went away. Hey, y'all. All right. So I have DTOX with me now in the live. Yeah. So his phone died, but the artwork came out amazing. And so we are coming together to basically say the artwork is going to be available on the website. There's going to be some free giveaways of artwork. So join the Patreon. The Patreon is free for now. It's more so just about creating community. And what else? Oh, yeah. Stay tuned till the very end if you would like to see the time lapse of me going through this transformation. What else?
Follow each of our Instagrams to follow along our journey.
Follow DTOX Art Instagram. I do not have a present day yoga Instagram, and I don't know that I want one. I kind of just want to maybe be sort of low key, but the DTOX Art Instagram is super fire. And what else? Simple Mystic.
Hey, it's gonna be a lot of fun stuff headed y'all's way, but y'all only knew, but you will know.
Yeah, we will definitely do some more creations, some more visual creations, some more body paint creations. We're really excited to share more collaborations.
And the artwork, I guess I mentioned this, that the artwork we're gonna do, like maybe the next episode, it's a black sheet and I'm drawing in just white and bringing like light sources from out of darkness. And then there might be some stuff where I'm on white and I'm doing darkness cutting into that light, or I might do like watercolor movements and you'll see them like dry in real time, and then we'll decipher them and turn them into visuals as we go. Hey, finding our way.
Yeah, we are definitely 100% finding our way. So thank y'all so much for following. Thank you for subscribing, turning on the notifications.
And every share, or just even when you tell and talk, say, hey, these people did or said something that I resonate with, check it out. Each one of those is very much appreciated. So thank you in advance. Thank you, guys.
Okay, well.
Mystics, keep it simple.
Yeah, simple mystics. I love you so much. You're so beautiful.
My queen.
Love is the name written in us. Love is the language teaching us.
The video of the video.
Whoa, where are we? Wait, I know where we're at. We're everywhere.
Don't go yet.
So much hilarity.
I can't believe that we just wash off the body paint.
Whoa.